So I think the analytics profession is characterized by this feature of high skill turnover, meaning that what's valuable today was not existing a short time period ago, and what will be useful in the future, we don't know yet. So given that background, I think all these emerging technology will push what our students do toward what we believe to be those higher order skills. So we worry about generative AI fundamentally because they can do some of what we call lower skill tasks, like memorizing or understanding basic facts or perform some analysis. And then as a result, I think what our students need to be more capable of doing is, for example, how do we apply the output of methodology? How do we evaluate or make judgment? And maybe more importantly, how do we create new things based on these outputs?
I think we want to make 3 moves to land AI with our students. The first one is making sure that they understand that we're on a technological revolution. If you look at humanity and how intelligence has been distributed, about 500 years ago, we had the first intelligence breakthrough. That was with the printing press, and that democratized AI or intelligence. The second one was the internet. That was about 30 years ago. We had Google, and that made it so that people could easily access information and knowledge. And then 3 years ago, we had artificial intelligence, and obviously that was ChatGPT from OpenAI. And so just understanding that this has played out over a span of 500 years and that this is accelerating in time is the first thing that we want to land with our students. The second thing is that this is just not a technological breakthrough, but it is also an economic breakthrough. If you look at traditional software companies, about 80% of the cost goes to salaries. But now in AI, that is flipped. And that is because the investments are at such a high level that it costs billions of dollars to put these GPUs together, these data centers, and the infrastructure. So what that really means is that if a small percentage of that infrastructure is underutilized, that will result in a very high cost. And so if you look at it from that perspective, it is very rational to have a small set of individuals with very high compensation. And that is simply not a luxury, but it is an operational safeguard. So looking at it from that or through that lens, our students are really seeing an unprecedented opportunity in the market. The third thing that we want to land with our students is obviously the technical skills. And if you look at how we're doing that, well, the crown jewels in our MSBA program are generative AI and reinforcement learning. To get to that, our students need to take deep learning. And to get to that, our students need to take data engineering, where they learn how to code and use all these new tools. And that makes it so that our students are not just tool users, but they really understand the business backdrop and the technological backdrop. And so they will be able and capable of delivering impact for companies.
So in terms of how generative AI is infused in the curriculum, we have some faculty that use chatbots that are trained on a specific type of content of the course. So that facilitates the students when they're searching for answers and they're doing their own study. So some folks are experimenting with that right now. In terms of how I use it in my own class, so I teach an optimization class that's required of all the MSBA students. So some of that is very basic material that, it's good for, if you have a question and you put a prompt on ChatGPT, I show them how to do that. And then say, look, you can ask that. It can show you the mathematical formulation of the problem so that it help you when you're studying for something. And then you have more involved assignments that are take-home assignments where those, you may use some generative AI, maybe perhaps with help with the coding. It's not going to do it for you, right? It may help you in a particular part of the code in Python. And then we have these, in-class assignments where generative AI is just not allowed, right? So that's where the assessment of the learning is. Want to make sure that you learn at least the basics of that. I'd just like to comment, though, that the reason to just be a little bit more cautious about this is, there are multiple studies that have been done over the past year using randomized controlled trials where they test a group of students randomized that have access to AI tools and those that do not have. And then they look at the outcomes of learning at the end, let's say scores on standardized tests or exams, and it's like, without question, the students who have access to AI or can use it without any sort of controls, they perform worse. So it definitely hurts the learning part. So it is a good productivity improvement tool if you already know the material. Let's say if you already know a little bit of Python, but you want to help with this particular part of code. And it's like optimization. If you know a little bit of optimization, can you help formulate this problem? But if you're learning for the very first time, right, you need to actually know. We cannot just teach people how to prompt things and get an answer and do not question, right? You need to know something about the subject to make sure that the answer makes sense. Because they're good about giving answers to things that have already been done, but many optimization problems are new and they just need to, it requires new thinking.
Generative AI really needs to be integrated into any curriculum because that's where the world is headed. Now, the class that I teach is a master's class in data mining, and the way that I integrate generative AI is by designing activities and homework problems that really push beyond what the students know currently and what I can actually present in class into realms of possibilities where these LLM models can help them to explore topics that they might not have otherwise thought of. So the way that I prepare the students to enter business knowing about AI and what it can do is by assigning these problems that move beyond what I'm teaching in the classroom into areas that I know that AI would be capable of guiding them through and introducing them to a topic or an approach, but I wouldn't have otherwise had time, say, in the classroom. And that's going to be a necessary skill in business when their manager are going to ask them about a problem or a task, that they know the basics, the rudimentary approaches, but definitely could use a guided tour of a new topic they haven't heard of to really flesh out all of the intricacies and details that it would take to fully flesh out and tackle a problem.
So that's a very important question. In my opinion, I think a very important mindset we should have is what I call this build and sell. Because fundamentally we're knowledge workers, we are generating new knowledge. And that's where the core technical skills are important. But in my mind, there is also important second step, that is to, in quotation, sell it. Fundamentally, that requires a different set of skills, meaning that number one, we need to identify the intrinsic value of whatever new knowledge we're generating for which audience. And then number two, I believe we need to be able to clearly articulate that knowledge and elaborate and deliver its potential value. And then for me, this second step requires a different set of skills, because typically the selling part requires knowledge that's specific to a problem domain, and many of those knowledge are tacit. And I believe many elements of our program is designed specifically for those domain-specific and tacit knowledge.
I think there are really two big skills. The first one is identifying the right problem and the solution, and then driving it to execution. And that really takes a couple of critical thinking, that requires critical thinking, but also prioritization skills and obviously technical acumen. To deliver those skills, or to foster these skills, what we do is we deliver or we offer unstructured real-world problems. And that means that our students are able to define the scope, align on goals, and then also deliver under tight resource constraints and time constraints. And that makes it so that our students are not just analyzing data, but they are really turning or translating data into decisions, and that helps them move forward organizations into the right direction.
So I think some of the more important skills that people need to succeed are creativity and innovation. So it's fantastic entering in a business with a strong foundation of skills and what analytics can do for you. But to move the envelope further, to push the envelope, you really have to have creativity and be able to imagine where analytics can take you. So I think as part of my class and all of the classes in the master's program, we take the raw skill set that you would learn in any classroom and try to push it beyond and kind of see the possibilities of where it could be applied to new problems that businesses are running into.
So I think one important element of our program is this capstone project, where we group students and a real corporate partner to tackle a real business problem. And then I was the faculty mentor for one project where we collaborate with a credit card company. And then there we analyze the publicly available consumer complaints data. And then our partner wants to know if we can find some, based on the consumer complaints, if we can identify some potentially internal operation issues of this company. So in that example, we have a group of students and we built a text analysis pipeline software, which in the end was incorporated in the company's internal larger information system. But I think that process is very important for students to understand the build and sell process. We can build a thing, and then more importantly, it is the domain-specific knowledge. What a credit card company, how do they handle data, personal data? What do they really care about? And I think those specific knowledge is really what matters.
Sure, in terms of how they use data analytics for that, I can comment on one capstone project that took place this past spring. This is Emerald Transformers. It's a company that repairs and refurbishes electrical transformers that are used in the utility, in the grid, right? The grid system. And so they have a number of customers that they have to pick up these transformers every day or week, right? And then they have to generate routings for these, they have 16 trucks on one facility, and they have to assign customers to trucks and which specific route they have to follow, which sequence, right, of those should be done. And they asked us for help for doing this. And so the students first, they had to create a standardized, they had some data, of course the company gave them data, but the data is messy, you have to clean it up and you have to create a data set that shows like a customer, date, as well as the address. Sometimes there were PO boxes you had to, instead of having, you need a street address. And then you need to see what exactly was being picked up and transform that into pallets. You have to standardize what's being picked up because you have different types of transformers, different sizes. You need to know how many pallets on the truck that occupies, right? So once you do that, the students went and ran that into an optimization software. They had, of course, to do some research first, get a free trial and so on, ran into that and calculated the mileage that was required for these 16 trucks and what was during the high volume months and the low volume months. And then they compared with the historical mileage because by the DOT regulations, these companies, you have to keep track of the mileage that these trucks run through. So what they came up with, this was a semester-long project, took a lot of work, but it produced savings of between 12% in the low volume months or 24% fewer miles traveled, which translates into huge savings. And the CEO was present at the meeting and his eyes were, he was really impressed with the outcome. So they're implementing that right now with these significant savings.
The benefits for the students.
And for the students and for the organizations, it's a win-win for everybody, right? The students, of course, learn all the skills required to do something like this. It's a lot of cleaning data, a lot of doing research, looking for solutions, presenting, which is the most important part, presenting to an audience. So,
yeah, one of my favorite projects that I was involved in where the master's students got to actually contribute to a business was with the MSBA Capstone experience. And this was just about 2 years ago. I had a team of 4 students, and we worked with Radio Systems PetSafe on looking at call volumes. So I don't know about you, but I used to have a couple of dogs, and we decided to get a automatic like water fountain for them, so we didn't have to continually fill up their water bowl. And you can imagine that some products that pet stores sell are pretty straightforward and probably don't need much coaching through on how to use them or what to do if something breaks down. But other things like an automatic water fountain might take a while, a few weeks to break down or have the customer run into questions. So we were given a bunch of data about here are the products that were sold. Some of them are going to have rather large lag times between when the customers are going to call up needing support. Otherwise, some might call up almost immediately. And so we were able to take a vast database of information from this company and to figure out, okay, well, when can we expect calls to start coming in about these products? So what my team did is they developed an application and a model that was able to anticipate based on what was being sold and when as to when the calls should be coming in. And that was able to help them plan the number of employees they needed to have staffed at the call center and also allow them to anticipate what kinds of calls might be coming in based on past sales records.
I think I'll give you a very pragmatic answer to that. So a student, when he or she finishes the undergraduate in, say, business analytics, a business major, not necessarily business analytics, has an average starting salary of $65,000, right? And then an MSBA student, when they finish the program, they have an average starting salary of about $80,000. So over a 10-month period, you get a 20% raise, which is pretty significant, right? So it's a pretty significant return on investment for the student. So why 10 months? Well, 10 months is so you're only out of the workforce for 1 year, right? Or 10 months actually, to be more precise. And then you have this pretty significant boost on your salary within 10 months. So for the students, I feel like you have a clear business case as to why you should pursue an MSBA program and why a 10-month program is better than, let's say, a 18-month program.
Yeah, so being able to complete a master's program in 10 months is a big ask because there's a lot of things you need to learn as a master's student to catch you up to the state of the art in the field. And I think a 10-month program has a huge advantage because of its fast-paced, because that's what you're going to find in business. You know, the world's changing at an ever faster rate, and you have to keep up with that change. So if you're not able to adapt quickly and learn quickly and synthesize new technologies and new innovations quickly, you're going to very quickly fall behind. So being able to be exposed and digest 10 months worth of really difficult, hard content, I think really helps the students out in the long run, because that's the sort of environment they're going to be seeing in business and helps them, stay ahead of the wave and be able to continually make contributions to the company.